right. How are we doing, Kirk? How are things?
Yeah, doing good. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing really well, really well. So we're doing this Facebook Live event right now. We're going to wait for some people to join us and talk a little bit about how to become an instructor with PFI, Performance Freediving International. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the path. You're going to lay that out. But before we get started, while we wait for some people to join us, the last time we spoke about a week ago when we were doing the webinar, you mentioned that you're going to go. It's a spectacular free dive with knee high, and you described it to me, and I was just kind of sitting here saying, "Oh man, I'm so jealous." Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm in Florida, so it's actually really good diving over here.
Yeah,
and Kirk is on the western side of Canada.
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking about, diving, Canada just doesn't come to mind, but the way you described it was super awesome. So did you do the dives?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so I'm in Vancouver Island, East Coast, halfway up, place called Campbell River, markets itself as the salmon fishing capital of the world. So, Neha, who's, the Rolex scholar. So she did her SDI training up to instructor, and then her PFI training up to instructor last year. Amazing lady. And so she's doing her master's at University of Victoria. She went to the Antarctic on the Rolex Scholar program. She did a commercial diving program here. And she's just done all this kind of neat thing through the Rolex program. So yeah, we went out on Monday, this past Monday, and did the world's best 1 to kind of 5 meter dive, and that's with thousands of salmon. So this time of the year, the salmon are swimming upstream, and we went to the outfall of the dam in a little back eddy, and just there was lots, but what they've done is they've moved, and now they're like moving up the tributaries and streams to actually lay their eggs. So a couple of weeks ago I was there, and there was thousands around us, and here there was just hundreds, but it was pretty awesome. It was really cool.
So, and I asked because, when you think of salmon, going up the river, I always picture, the bears kind of just hanging out there and catching them. And you said, that's a common occurrence. So did you guys see any bears, or were you a bear?
No, never saw any bears, eagles, a lot of other stuff. Although hiking the river the days before, lots of bear scat on the trails. So, does a bear go in the woods? No, they go in the trails you're hiking on, is what I can tell you. So
awesome. Well, I'm really happy that you're able to do that dive. Out of curiosity, did anyone bring a camera? Because I'd love to see that, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to get up there.
I brought a camera and I got like one video, and then the battery died. So I've got an issue. I have listen, I'm going to send you a link of a Facebook thing we did, and you can search it PFI Salmon Swim. And it's just this really professionally done thing from Russell Clark. And it's really cool. Kind of shows the whole weekend and what it's all about.
Awesome. Great. Well, Kirk, thanks for joining us again. As I was mentioning earlier, we did this webinar last week. We had a lot of interest, and we figured, look, the conversation went really well. We had really great questions, and we wanted to do this on a Facebook Live event so we could reach a broader audience, because it's only fair for the people that are seeking more information. Yeah. Before I get into that, however, I'd like to know where's your next dive?
My next dive, I'm going to be diving in Pandora. So instead of a 6 week or 6 year hibernation, I'll be quarantining in New Zealand for 2 weeks. I leave this Sunday. So this is working on Avatar sequels. We've been shooting 2 and 3, and this is, I guess, going to be finishing off some stuff for number 3 for James Cameron. And so it'll be interesting.
Can you leak any names of people that you're teaching?
Oh, well, so, Sigourney Weaver and Zoe Saldana and Stephen Lang, and I mean, a whole bunch. So it's been really cool. So seven of my students from the cast were adults, and then I had 7 kids that ranged from 6 years old to 16 at the time. And in our time in LA, in 3 years in LA, we logged in over 250,000 dives. So 250,000 plus free dives. you know, at one time, I think we had 26 people on breath hold under the water. So camera unit, grips, because it's performance capture with all these dots. You can't have scuba bubbles in the water because it misses the cameras up, right? So yeah, and what we've been able to do is pretty awesome. The most significant diving movie ever, all done free diving. You're gonna watch the Metakain, the Ocean Navi, because number 2 is all about the oceans of Pandora. And so we had to shoot it free diving, and then you get to see this, you know, free diving tribe. Basically, it's going to be really cool.
Release date for that?
I think it's now currently December 2022. And then, you know, if the box office is good 3 months later in March, I think they'll green light the shooting of 4 and 5, which has ocean stuff as well.
So we won't see you for another 7 years.
Yeah, potentially. So,
well, let's get right into it. And safe travels, by the way, if I forget to mention that later. But let's get right into it. And what I want to do is I want to invite the audience, the people that are watching us right now, to ask questions. And you can ask questions about anything PFI related. We have our first question from our friends from Argentina, from Combi Kalimba. And they want to know, what is the path of a diving instructor? So someone that's already a diving instructor, what is their path to becoming a free diving instructor?
Yeah, that's a great question. So really, when you look at it, there's kind of 2 paths to becoming an instructor, and then there's a couple of subpaths in that. So the first one is you're not a professional diver in any way. You're not an instructor, an assistant instructor. And then you go through that whole instructor process, which starts with you having to learn to become a competent free diver. And then you move into the professional sides of the learning. And then we have the crossover system, and the crossover system allows diving professionals, be it scuba or free diving professionals, to then come in and work into the system. So a scuba instructor, what we know is that your current certification agency to become a scuba instructor did the job of teaching you how to teach. Understood. So you know how to read standards, you know how to make lesson plans, you know how to defensive teach, you know how to be an evaluator, all of those sorts of skills. So we don't need to teach you how to teach. But what we do need to do is we need to, first off, make you a free diver, and then we need to train you in how to teach free diving, because it's a different beast. When you look at diving, there's recreational scuba, there's technical scuba diving, and then there's free diving, and they all have their different nuances and safety procedures and all that sort of thing. So
one of them you hold your breath, and the others you don't.
Yeah, exactly. We go from the always breathe, never hold your breath to the always hold your breath, never breathe, right? So what a scuba diver, what a scuba instructor has to do is, first off, they become a recreational free diver. Now, in our system of education, to teach a free diver level program, you have to be competent at the level above recreationally. So you would take an intermediate level program. So for some people, that means taking the free diver level first and then the intermediate. Although if you're already a scuba instructor, we're recommending you move straight into the intermediate, because it's the best value, it's the best learning, and it's the core competencies of what you're going to need. Now, you will have to do the e-learning for the free diver, because you need to be very knowledgeable in that aspect. Sure. Now, once you become an intermediate free diver, a lot of people also go and do advanced, because that also lends them to be able to upgrade later to become an intermediate instructor. So at a minimum, you become an intermediate level free diver. Then from there, what you're going to do is a series of programs. So the first couple of programs you're going to do is the safety free diver program, which is like a rescue diver program. It's more advanced levels of rescue, other than just what you're going to learn on how to be a buddy and take care of my buddy. Now you're going to work in more complicated systems, working with divers that are deeper, how counterbalances and lanyards are used, all that sort of thing. And then you're going to take a free diver supervisor program, which is like a dive master course. So it's the first actual professional level. And that's having you learn how the professional side of being a free diver works. So how to supervise free divers, how to problem solve, what's required in courses and all that sort of thing, how to deal with groups, right? How to risk mitigate. And then the next thing you'd also have to have, because you're already a scuba instructor, your oxygen, AED, first aid, CPR, all of that should have to be current. Right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go through an orientation program within the international training system. And so with international training, that's our parent company, that's TDI, SDI, PFI. And then we don't have to do the assistant instructor program because you've already been taught how to teach. You're simply going to go on and do the evaluation process at that point. So there'll be some one-on-one webinars like this. There'll be those programs that you have to do. And then you go to your IE and put it all together and prove to your evaluator that you can teach programs, you're competent, you have all the knowledge, and away you go.
So first step, take it at the diver level.
First step, take it at the diver level. Yeah. And you know, and that gets you, and you're going to, again, free diver and then intermediate. And that gets you all the base knowledge of what you need to do to then move on and become a professional diver, free diver.
You know when we had the merger between international training and PFI, and I'll let you speak about that in a bit. I took the freediving class with Chris, who's our training director for PFI.
Yeah.
And over the course of the last year with a 9-year-old, I did very little scuba diving, but I did a lot of snorkeling, of snorkeling. And the moment I took that freediving course, I realized how many things I was doing incorrect. So it was an eye opener, saying, "Wow, I'm
absolutely
with a 9-year-old, with my GoPro." And so it was an amazing program. It was an amazing course.
It's more than just holding your breath and kicking down and back up. There's a lot involved, because even the safety is the fundamentals are there that are similar, but there's these nuances that are really important to know.
Yeah, it was a great program, great class.
So I think, Chris, one of the things that's interesting is there's some programs out there that allow you to take a recreational program and then just, sign off 25 dives and become an instructor now because you're a scuba instructor. Okay. Well, you have to realize you take an intermediate level course with me. I'm now saying that you're competent at the minimum standards that would make you a safe, comfortable, knowledgeable, competent, intermediate level diver. To teach is a completely different beast. So I think it does a disservice, honestly, in that aspect. And that's why we have a more involved system to give you the full tools and all the skills and experiences you need to do something that, there's very real risks in it. And you need to know what they are and how to mitigate them more than just, at a diver level.
Yeah. At the end, it's not just about having fun, right? It's about doing it safely. And
yeah, absolutely.
Training is the way to do that. So I briefly touched on the merger. But before we get into that, let's talk chronologically and let's go from the beginnings of Performance Freediving International. What made you decide that, hey, I'm gonna start a training agency in freediving? How did that idea come about?
Yeah, well, so first off, I've been a recreational scuba instructor since '88. Okay. I've been a technical and trimix instructor and instructor trainer since the early '90s to mid '90s. But a freediver all my life. And then really freediving became a professional thing for me when I was in the Cayman Islands. In about the mid '90s, I started into it. And by the end of the '90s, I was full on into it and had developed the first real beginning educational system for someone. And it really didn't go anywhere. And so I left Cayman. I started Performance Freediving in January of 2000. And I threw everything out and I restarted developing a system of education. Because by that time, I had trained 2 people to 2 national and 2 world records. So each a national and each a world record, Brett Lemaster and Tanya Streeter. But I had also done safety for Audrey Ferreras, Pepin Ferreras, and a number of other freedivers setting up their safety systems and that sort of thing. And what I saw was there was no educational systems, right? And one of the things that really bothered me is people were teaching, but it was like, hey, come with me. I'm this world record holder. Watch me free dive.
Right.
And let's not talk about blackouts because, I don't want to scare you off. And I thought that's ludicrous. Let's talk about the safety first. Let's get it out of the way, get on the same page. Then we can start learning skills. Then we can start developing performances. And because I had such a high level and a long history of recreational and technical instructor trainer, and I had been involved in training organizations, I just thought that, we need to set a standard because it's so iffy. And if I go and free dive with someone and they say, oh yeah, I'm a free diver, and I realize we don't speak the same language. They don't know safety. So that's the whole thing about trying to standardize things. So January 2000, I started performance free diving. I wrote the first standards and procedures and educational system and manual. And then years later, we became the first freedive specific organization that actually got insurance. They came to us because I had been going to them for years to say, I need professional liability insurance. Mm-hmm. I need to start instructor programs. And then eventually they said and came to us and said, if we're going to do it, you're going to be the people. And it just developed from there. And so really we're evidence-based training system on best practices. What is not just best in teaching you the skills and all of that stuff, but what is going to translate into a worldwide system that's going to be defensible should there be litigation and things like that involved. And so we're always evolving. For 7 years, I ran a research program at Simon Fraser University, a 12-week advanced freediving research program. And we lent that into the system. And now we've got some really good instructors. We think we got the best instructors in the world out there because, we're really proud of our system. We've put a lot of work into it. It's always developing and getting better. And now we're with ITI, right? International Training. And that's a whole nother conversation, how it moved us another leap forward into what we're doing.
Yeah. So it was super exciting for us. And I just want to remind people, if you guys have any questions for Kirk, now's the time to ask. But yeah, it was really exciting for us when we had the merger, because we always had people saying, we need a freediving program. We need a freediving program. We need a freediving program. And just writing one up just did not make sense to us. We're originally scuba divers. Now, Brian has some freediving experience from university. Like I said, I go snorkeling with kids, but it's not the same, and it had to be reputable. It had to be an organization that people would take serious. That was very, very important to us. Yeah. Besides the success of SDI, the other organizations we have is TDI, renowned globally for its technical.
The market leader in technical diving.
And then the same with public safety with ERDI. So we did not want to fall off that trend of having a very high standard, doing things correctly by just creating a free diver program just to say we offer it. Yeah. So that was very important to us. And then, that's when we said, let's speak to Kirk, and I'll let you take it from here. But that's from us, from our end, right? And I'll let you take it from the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. So years ago at the DEMA trade show, the Diving Equipment Manufacturers Association, Brian and I had met and we had talked, and PFI, we had taken PFI to a point where it was great, really solid standards, great instructors and everything. But there's this point where for you to continue to grow, you need to scale up. And we were outstripping our capacity as a small organization in which to continue to provide professional service, or the ability to realize the full system I had in my head. We did not have, the tools in place in which to scale up to do that. And so it really made sense that if we were going to realize the full educational system of not just core programs of snorkeler, freediver, intermediate, and some instructor programs, talking specialty programs, high specialty programs like technical freediving and scooters and, spearfishing and all that sort of thing, which we can talk about later. So, and it really meant is if we're going to scale up to see that, and then we're going to get growth, we need to have a professional organization. We need to join into a larger family. And ITI just absolutely made sense. I mean, the customer service, well, first off, being a technical diver and having been involved in TDI in variations of it, the customer service was off the charts. I mean, anyone going to the website can see that little chat bar in the lower right-hand corner and, hey, I've got a question. And, 10 seconds later, hi, I'm Vivian. What can I help you with? And, you got it there. And the great thing with the e-learning system, when you're going through your e-learning, you're like, I don't quite get that. You hit that chat thing. And 24 hours a day, it seems like someone's there to help you before you even get to your instructor, right? So, from the customer service and the reputation. And the great thing is with international training, which is TDI, SDI, PFI, and all these diving companies, is we're still a family. We're still passionate divers. We're not like this behemoth beholden to some equity company that's like, whatever. So you really feel like you're working with, divers who are in the water and passionate about it. And I've always said PFI, we consider ourselves, our members, family members. And now we just have a larger family, right? We've just we just joined the cousins from both sides of the family now. So it's really awesome.
Thanksgiving happened. Well, perfect. Great. Thanks for that. You touched upon a little bit on specialties. And when we were doing the webinar, we got quite a few questions on this. So explain to us a little bit the specialties. For example, as you're talking about the process to cross over, I jotted a note here saying, the difference between intermediate and advanced. Give us a little bit of insight on what those differences could be, and then let's talk a little bit about the specialties that you could offer as a PFI professional.
Yeah, so we have core programs, and our core programs are structured into recreational and professional. So our recreational core programs are, snorkeler, skin diver, the freediver level program, which is teaching someone over a couple of days to about 20 meters, 66 feet. Then we have an intermediate level program, which is 3 to 4 days. And that's teaching a person into about the 40-meter range. And then we have an advanced level program, which is anywhere from 4 to 6 days. And that's into the 60-meter plus range. And those are our core programs. Then we also have our core professional programs, which is the safety freediver, the freediver supervisor, assistant instructor, and then the upgrades. So, because once you become a freediver instructor, and you've then gone and done the advanced level recreational program, then you can go and do the upgrade to the intermediate freediver and start instructor system and start teaching that. So there's those paths, and that was our core system. Okay. But there's a lot of things that from the core of you being a freediver, let's say you're an intermediate level freediver and you're having fun in that 100-foot, 30-meter range and you're competent there. You sometimes dip down to 40 meters, 130 feet, but you can go and play and have fun in 100 feet, 30 meters. Well, then there's a lot of specialty things you can start to do. For example, spearfishing, harvesting, ethical, sustainable harvesting. And so we're developed a number of a reef spearfishing program and an ocean spearfishing program. And these will be launched very quickly. I mean, I'm looking at them right now. It's just going through the final checks with insurance and everything like that, right? And that will then allow you, with your core ability as a recreational freediver, to then engage in these other sorts of things. So we have reef freediving, we have ocean freediving, we have a DPV, diver propulsion vehicle, or scooters. We have mermaid systems, so we have the mermaid splash and aquatic mermaid. We have wreck freediving with no penetration, no overhead environments. Right. We have marine ecosystems. We have the breath hold survival, which has been running now for years. And that was largely utilizing freediving and breath holding as a survival thing for surfers, water enthusiasts, Coast Guard rescue swimmers. But then I also end up doing some special operations groups. We work with 7 different special operations groups from 3 different countries. And then finally, technical freediving, which is the use of oxygenated mixtures, the right tool for the job for the breath holding you're doing. So for example, on Avatar, 250,000 free dives, and we're using technical freediving because, last thing you want is to push Someone pushes a little too hard, blacks out, and now you got a $3 million day, let's say, down the tubes because one person had a problem. So right tool for the job. And that's technical for them. So that's what our specialties are involved in, is taking you from those core programs, and then you can go and have fun, you know, on a scooter, shooting fish, getting dinner, you know, whatever it's going to be.
Awesome. Wow. That sounds really, really complete. You do have a question here asking how we provide marketing support for new instructors. So there are people that might be new in the freediving business. And I can take that question if you'd like, Kirk. But essentially, we do have a marketing team. One of the members, Brittany, is currently our producer today. She's the one that's putting the questions up and showing us the great pictures. But we do several things, and some of those things are everywhere from website audits, where we'll review websites. We'll make sure that you're doing the right things. As many people know, Google changes their algorithms to keep things organic as far as searches go. So we'll do those website audits to make sure that your SEO, the search engine optimization, is where it needs to be so that you can be found. Because the best thing that we can do is ensure that when people are Googling you, you can be found. If you're on page 2 of a search, it's no good. As you know, no one really looks at the second page anymore. You pretty much can find what you want on the first page. So among other things, we're always eager to share your content. So if you're posting something on social and you use the right hashtags, you know, we will go ahead and we'll share your content so it helps get traction and gain feet. And if you are writing blogs to help promote yourself and what you're doing, we can either do one of two things. We can share those in our newsletters because we're always looking for content. Or if you have it on your own website because it helps your website gain more hits, then let us know and we will go ahead and share it through our social media. So those are the things that we do.
And there's that great marketing resource center that's just chock full of stuff too.
Yes, and you can look at the our website as a professional. When you log in, we have the marketing resource center, which the marketing team did an amazing job with. And there's a lot of different options that you can play around with. And, you know, last resort is pick up the phone, call us up and say, I need help designing a video. What do you suggest? Or I need help putting an ad on Facebook. All those type of things we're eager to help because we understand that our success is based on your success. So it's extremely important for us to make sure that you are doing really well because everybody wins that way. So question, do we have any course directors in Latin America? I believe we have someone in Brazil. Is that correct?
Yeah, Carol Schrappe in Brazil. Yeah,
she is. Who I think she's actually on the live event. She just said hi, guys, earlier. So
waving.
So Carolina is here. There she is. Yep. All right. Perfect. So what's next as far as programs go? Are there any?
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's talk about how a current freediving instructor who's interested can cross over. Because we talked about how you become an instructor if you have no professional experience. We've talked about if you're a scuba instructor. So what about the freediver instructor that's already out there? And for whatever reason, they like the PFI system, they like the e-learning, they like the customer service, they like that we're really a small family kind of group and with your best interest in heart. And we're dynamic and changing and innovative. So freediving instructor. So first off, it's done by an individual case by case. We don't just look at you as a certification card and a number. We look at you as the whole of the individual, and that's important. So there's an application, and it's not that you're being approved or not, whether you can come into our system. It's where we best fit your academic and learning path or needs to become a PFI professional. And so what you do is, as a freediver instructor, depending on your certification and your association, your current agency, some agencies, because they're developed off the PFI system, we can basically move in, not completely administratively, but it's really just kind of getting into the whole of the PFI and the international training system. So there's orientation, there's e-learning programs that you go through and that sort of thing. And then there's some organizations where we need to do more. And some of that is going through not just the International Training Organization. There's also an e-learning platform within the PFI system. And then plus you also have to go through and do the PFI freediver and intermediate e-learning. So you've got to get comfortable and knowledgeable with our complete system of education. And then what we can do is, and there's exams and everything that goes with that. Then there's going to be a webinar, a one-on-one, or you and your group where you're live with your instructor trainer or your course director who's going to take you through, and you might have to do some presentations and things like that. And then what we have the ability now is to get with a regional office, and they're one of their representatives, and they can do a video system of taking you through and you proving your abilities and skills. So demonstration quality skills. Do you have the capacity to do the dives? Can you meet the maximum demands of what's happening? Can you problem solve? All of these sorts of things. And that can be done as a live in water video, and it gets submitted to us for work. That's the remote way of doing that. In that there's watermanship skills and all of those things that we have to do. So those are the ways that a current freediver instructor can move into our system of education. There's some obscure organizations that come in that we can barely find standards and procedures for them. And so sometimes it's a lot more involved and needs to be in person with the instructor. But for the most part, it's pretty simple and straightforward. And there's an international training. This is the great thing, has just launched a new support system, Cris, and I think you should talk about that for crossovers.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. But first, let's get into the process, because you hit on something that I find super interesting. Often we see it, and we see it with all organizations. People they've spent a lot of time, they've invested a lot of money to get to where they're at with other organizations, and I think the key point there is that we respect that, and we respect the what they've had to go through, which is why us taking into consideration their level of experience is so important. And you guys do a great job at analyzing that, putting it apart, and then putting it back together. So that they are not starting necessarily from scratch. They're starting from where we see it as a new starting point. And like you said, it's great that you guys can do that on individual basis. We do have a crossover stimulus package that is currently going on. And it's very simple. We are a lot of people are in need of financial support in times like these. A lot of people have not been able to teach. I apologize if my messages are coming through here. A lot of people have not been able to teach very much over the last few months. In some places less than others. And a lot of that are just restrictions that are beyond their control. There are forced restrictions by local governments, countries, and things like that. So they're on lockdown. And one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to say, look, it costs money to cross over from one organization to another. It doesn't matter where you're coming from or where you're going. There are fees associated with that. But we kind of said, this only works if we can actually help people financially and give them something back where they can, like we like to say, put your money where your mouth is. And we say, we pay you. So if you are paying membership fees with another organization, let us know what those fees are. You can use a receipt or whatnot, and you can pay us those membership fees, and we'll return that to you in form of product, so you can get started immediately. So that way you have something that you can go ahead and use to sell to potential students, at least once things open up a little bit. So it's a really great deal. You could contact us for more information. If you want to look, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about the e-learning system, but if you want to look at things that we actually provide as far as materials go, I'd be really happy to also give you sample codes for our freediving program. So you can look at them and you can actually go through the program. You can see what your student would see. So if you are a freediving instructor with another organization, hit us up. You can hit us up right here in the comment section, or you can do a PM to our organization through Facebook and ask for some sample codes, and I'll be happy to generate those for you. And that way you can look at our system. No commitment whatsoever. We're just we really believe in the e-learning program, and we think that once you see it, you'll really like it. So, Kirk, tell us about the e-learning system, because that's something that's also new for PFI since the merger, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a huge part. I mean, besides the customer service and the family feel and everything,
Yep.
was the success of the e-learning system. And what I liked is that international training didn't look at the e-learning to replace it. Basically you sign up for a course, they give you a manual and say, read the manual before you get to class. But honestly, how many people do that? With an e-learning system, it's fantastic. And it's an interactive, multidiscipline system that takes you through the learning process, where you're answering questions and there's some quizzes and some final exams, and it's all very interactive and it's great, and it's got video and all the stuff that you need, and takes you through the core of the information of what you need prior to getting to class. Now, as the instructor, for me, it's phenomenal because I get notices and I get to see that Joe or Jane have just completed this exam. Here's what they scored. Here's the areas I see where they might not fully comprehend. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more when I get with them. Then when we finally do get to class, because again, it doesn't replace the class or the academic sessions,
Right.
but it enhances it. So now they come to class. I know they've completed the e-learning system. I know their strengths and weaknesses. And now what I get to do is I don't have to spend time in class explaining what an atmosphere of pressure is. I know they understand that. What I'm going to do now is relate an atmosphere of pressure in real time, in real life, in that day, and how it's going to work with them in the pool or in the ocean, or how it's going to work in their future freediving. And so it really allows us to take the academic or the class session and turn it more into an interactive doing something workshop, where we can spend time focused on really good stretch sessions, really good equalizing sessions, all of these different things. And they've got this core information. And so it's so powerful. And the thing I love about it is you don't have to buy your language and then you're stuck with whatever language. I mean, multi-speakers, they might, be reading in Spanish, but then going to take it from an English instructor.
Sure.
You can tab that thing back and forth. You're not stuck with, I just spent X dollars in a Spanish, but now I got to buy the English manual too, because I'm going to be with my English instructor. Right. You can just switch the tab. I can switch it. And ITI has over a dozen different languages that you can tab back and forth from.
And constantly working on more.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. And it really just took our system of learning and took it to the next step. A lot more efficient, a lot more interactive, a really complete system, and really proud of how we've taken the PFI system of education and combined it into that e-learning format. And it's just so powerful.
Awesome. So we're talking about the system. We're talking about the way of learning or the options that people have to learn a freediving class with Performance Freediving International. Let's stick along those lines, and let's talk about one of the key components of taking a course, and those are the standards. What are some of the key differences in standards that an instructor from another organization would see that PFI does a little bit differently? Do you have any examples for those, or?
Yeah, so there's a number of things. Well, I mean, to give you an idea, we were really, Brett and I were the first people, Brett Lemaster and I, in the late 90s, were the first people to develop an actual system of recovery breathing. Up until that time, it was just like, I come to the surface and I breathe and I maybe don't breathe properly, and so we developed the system of recovery breathing, which it was very innovative in how we really drilled in on something called hook breathing, which just came out in a paper showing the efficacy of how hook breathing is powerful. And so what we've done is we've taken and we've really developed a very standard protocol that we all learned from. And what's great is that I could, and this happens all the time, right? I end up going to another country. I end up meeting up with another PFI diver, not necessarily a professional member, just,
Sure.
done an intermediate or a free diver program. And we get together and we're talking, we might be talking different languages,
Yep.
right? English versus French, Spanish, whatever it might be.
Yep.
But when we talk the language of safety and hook breathing and supervision and all of these different things, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And so it's so simple. So what we have done is we've really kind of helped create a standardization. Now, it's left up to the instructor in ways to help personalize those things. And that's great because there's a lot of different ways to teach the same skill and get to the same page. So that's great. So those are some of the things. And then when you look at, we were the first people to develop a safety freediver program and a supervisor program. Prior to that, you took your recreational course and then, you did a couple of days and there's your instructor card. In the early days, I remember going to competitions and them stopping the first day of competition and saying, all right, Kirk, can you take everyone through, safety? What do we need to do? And so our whole system is really kind of developed about each level supporting the next and that growth of knowledge that moves along.
You mentioned this a few times throughout the presentation today, and you mentioned competitions. The differences between a diver aspiring to do competition level training versus one that just, like you said earlier, shoot fish.
Yep.
What do you see a lot of that? Do you see a vast difference in thinking and philosophies from those two groups? Because I would imagine so. Someone wants to do it for fun. Someone wants to do it to potentially, break records. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the cool thing about freediving is there is a competition aspect to it.
Yes.
You can quantify, you can look at the ranking lists and see last year who was the best in the world at these individual disciplines. And what I love about it, it's a game of golf because I look and, my friends who look on the list and see, oh man, I'm like 285th in the world in this discipline. And they're stoked because they've done their best ever. So listen, you're only trying to beat yourself. You're only trying to get better. And it's really unlimited. Marianas Trench, 36,000 feet, right? 10,900 meters is the absolute depth of freediving, unless you bring a shovel, I guess. And then, so that's the competition side, which is quantifiable. And then you have just the recreational, just want to go out and experience what there is to see. Now, for some people, that's to harvest it, to feed themselves. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's to take pictures. And other people are in it just for the experience of your physiology adapting to this environment and really going back almost millions of years in our evolution to how your physiology changes and adapts. Now, freediving is amazing cross-training for scuba divers. So if you're a recreational, especially a technical or trimix diver, if you haven't taken a freediving class, you are not a complete technical or trimix diver, in my opinion, or rebreathers, because there's so much to learn from it. So yeah, it's really neat. Now, when we train, we're not training for competition, although we do use some systems and procedures. We'll do line diving. So we go up and down a line because it allows us, number one, to organize and manage the safety and efficiency of how we're going to train and to take care of any problems. And sometimes it's touch and go, or sometimes it's get down there and spend some time. And then we can, and good instructors then will, at the end of days or on some of the last ocean session, they'll take away the line and they'll say, now let's go hit the reef and put all this into play. So there's a lot of ways that we train and can use. Now, again, the competitive freediver who's just going for maximum performance, straight up and down a line, or how many distances in a pool, or how long face down they can hold their breath, is one thing. And it's a really cool thing to see what you're capable of and constantly get better with, versus I'm going to use freediving as a means of harvesting. So think of it like biathlon and skiing. You know, it's cross country skiing and then shooting. Well, if all you're ever doing is working on the shooting, well, that's great. But, you know, you got to work on the skiing part of it too. And so for the spear fisherman, being a good freediver and then knowing hunting skills and harvesting aspects is the other part.
Super cool analogy. And you're right. I would recommend anyone that has a passion for the ocean. And if you're just a scuba diver you're just watching us chat here a little bit about freediving, and you didn't know if you had any interest in freediving or not, you just kind of wanted to see what this was about, I highly recommend that you take the freediving course, because it first of all, it's an eye opener on how you just snorkel if you're with your family. But it has that Zen feeling to it. You know, I always thought, you know, hippies, you know, but it really does have that Zen feeling to it, you know, and doing those breathing exercises. It's a lot of fun. It's super relaxing. And then applying those to the actual dives itself, for me, it was pretty cool. So, well,
you know, Chris, so we've all got basic equipment, right? Whether you're a recreational, technical, or a free diver. Scuba divers, mask, fin, snorkel, right? We all have those basics, but our physiology changes quite radically and different. So for a professional level scuba diver, recreational or technical, taking a freediving course rounds out your complete diving education, because our physiology, you're going to learn stuff in physiology and physics and equipment and all of these different things that you didn't learn, or you were exposed to, but you didn't understand why it's important at the freediving level. And so it really completes your freediving education, whether you play in it with it or not. Now, we do a lot of breath hold survival programs for surfers, you know, talking about cross training. And I tell them, listen, when the surf sucks, it means the freediving's great, you know, because it's flat. And when the surfing is great, then the freediving's going to suck because there's waves. So it's a really great way to cross train. And for, you know, the recreational scuba diver, you know, there's those days when, well, you can't fly and dive in the same day. So freediving's a nice way to do it. And so lots of ways.
We got a comment here from Tech Clark saying the Zen is why I do it too. So that's
exactly.
Well, hey, listen, Kirk, thank you so much for joining us again. You know, I know you're busy prepping and getting ready to it's going to be a 20-hour flight from Canada to New Zealand.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I have to go to LA first and do all my COVID testing there and then move on. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, listen, safe travels, have fun, stay in touch. And as I said earlier, anyone that wants to preview our programs and anyone that wants to run through the e-learning program, if you currently are a freediving instructor, hit us up, let us know. And, you know, we'll be happy to issue some sample codes so you can see the educational material that we have. We think it's really, really good. If you have another organization that you're teaching through and you're happy with them, that is awesome. But I always say it's nice to have options out there. So keep us in mind if you're interested in knowing more about Performance Freediving International. And again, Kirk, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who joined us, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Any tips to see us off, Kirk?
Any tips? Yeah, hey, freediving is an amazing way to reduce stress. And these are kind of stressful times. So, you know, learn how to sit back, take a breath and chill. Everything's going to be better. Just give it some time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone, Chris, for joining us. Kirk, don't leave. Stick around for a sec.
Okay.
Thanks, Brett.